Good evening and welcome to the rest of the news. Well, we've got a lot to celebrate about. It's well, before we do anything else, I'd like to show you the rioting that the Hillary supporters are doing all around the country and burning the American flag. Okay. Well, Ed, what do you make of this? Of course, one of the best things is Kentucky is
right. This was a historic event, and for the first time in almost 100 years, the Republicans control all three: the governor's office, the House, and the Senate. And there are 23 new members of the General Assembly.
23.
And,
we only needed 4, didn't we?
Right, exactly. And that was the amazing thing, which means that in the process, every Democratic chairman who had controlled the flow of legislation, who have killed bills after bills that the general public would want, and at that point, they will have a new chairman of every one of those committees, all of the leadership, the floor leader, the Speaker of the House, all of those offices now are the control of the Republicans. Now, winning was, I said earlier to you and I were talking, that that's only half the battle. It's very important now that we support them to let them know what legislation is critical for the future of America and for the future of Kentucky and for the children and the next generation.
Right.
We've taken prayer out of school. They've done all of those things. They support the abortion of clinics and all the rest of it. So now is the time to take advantage of this opportunity, because the next election will be in 2 years for every member of the House. And if they don't perform, and the Democrats are going to be working full time to make sure that they sabotage as much as they can and communicate with them, tell them you don't want this, you don't want that. So it's up to the Christians and the other level-headed thinking people to work together with these newly members, because again, that large number of new people have never written a bill, have never been in a committee, have never functioned these things. So the training process that the leaders of the Republican Party are going to have to do to bring them up to speed.
Right.
I mean, it's a short period between now and January when they go into session.
Well, now, Ed Holloway, how many years were you in the state legislature?
I was in there 17 years.
17 years. So you're speaking from experience.
And from that standpoint, I was part of the smallest group of Republicans ever in the House after the Nixon and his resignation and all that. There were just a handful of us that were all that. And so the Democrats have had this kind of unlimited control with very little effort. So we were able to increase that number each of the years that I was there, and we helped and recruited good candidates in a lot of areas that we now have it as total Republican areas.
Well, you know, I believe Greg Stumbo was one of the major figures that stopped all the conservative.
He's been in the legislature for 30 years. Number one, as Speaker of the House, he assigned the bills to the proper committees or to the improper committees, depending on what they wanted to kill. And all of those things are the critical thing about the internal workings of the General Assembly.
Right.
And without that kind of thing, and they control the kickbacks and all the corruption and everything else that goes on. You want to be a contractor, you want to supply something to the state of Kentucky, they have ways to make that sure that you get the bill or you get the business, and they get the campaign contributions. And all of that. I could tell you stories about different companies, different ones that tried to get business, and even to the point of, you have to have a draft of what you want and all of the other things, so that the purchasing is legitimate. It's open for bids, but they write that bid in such a way that only one person could qualify for that. So all of those things.
There was a lot of corruption,
and there was an article written about the vote buying in Kentucky is still what is like it's always been. So all of those things have been overcome now, but it's our responsibility as Kentuckians to make sure that that a win will be profitable for both the rank and file and everybody in the state of Kentucky.
Well, I heard that Greg Stumbo did not even win his own county.
No, he lost big time because Prestonsburg is in the heart of the coal industry.
Oh,
and
it all caught up with him.
And Greg Stumbo was a very outspoken supporter of Hillary Clinton.
Oh, no.
And one of the things against him was her clip of her saying, I'm going to close every coal company in America and all of the power companies. So all the livelihood of all of Eastern Kentucky is dependent on coal or coal-related activities. And when he said that, she said that, and all that was all it needed to take company.
Unbelievable.
But again, when you serve that long and all that, the arrogance that comes with it, you think I'm untouchable, which made him even more vulnerable. So it's
oh, brother.
It was a very interesting thing, and a lot of the others that have been in those positions for dozens of years were going to be out as committee chairman.
Yeah.
All of those who have blocked, because as committee chairman, you make the decision on what bills are considered for a vote in committee and whether it ever gets to the floor.
Yeah.
It's never a chance for the committee to vote up or down. The chairman of the committee decides what bills we're going to discuss.
Yeah, and if he doesn't like your bill, then it never sees the light of day.
Exactly.
Never gets a vote.
Exactly.
This was really something. And I think that the footage we showed at the beginning of the program of Hillary's supporters burning the American flag, I mean, it seems to me that says a world of information.
This illustrates what's been going on, and it started in the 60s, where the radical left decided that they couldn't do with the sit-ins and all the other protests that they're going to have to infiltrate the media. They're going to have to infiltrate the universities. We want you to go and become a professor and get tenure so that they can't get rid of you. All of those things were open. Now, right now, all of the protesters, most of them coming off these campuses, and to support the protesters, the universities have waived the
they don't have to show
testing and all of the other things and all that, because the professors are some of the most radical people in America today, and the campuses are the hotbed of all of these activities.
I would say anti-American activities.
Exactly. Completely. Wow. Because all of these socialist organizations have their roots back in the Communist Party.
Yeah.
And their whole objective is to destroy America and everything it stands for so that it can be rebuilt into this utopia. Whatever their utopian concept is, where everything is equal and we got a one world and everybody's all this, that, and the other. But it's something that's never worked and never will.
Well, I mean, there are a lot of historic votes here, like the Rust Belt, where it says Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. They went Republican, which they rarely do. I've got an article written by Tony Perkins who said that evangelical Christians came out in huge numbers.
Exactly, 81%, which is higher than it has been in the general election. And the ministers have done a tremendous job.
Absolutely.
Of bringing all this stuff to the surface, explaining what's going on. And all of that has helped energize the religious community. Because one of the things that the left has been trying to do is eliminate Christianity completely from anything about America.
Well, Hillary herself said that the deeply held religious views are going to have to change.
Exactly.
Oh, brother, can you believe that? So the pro-life movement gained on this whole deal.
And also the Catholic community.
Oh, absolutely.
They voted over 52% of their members voted Republican for the first time. So.
And the other thing that I read was that the working people came out in big numbers for Trump, and that he said that they were the forgotten men and women in America, and he was going to represent them.
Exactly. And this is another thing that the trade agreements and some of the other things that have been going on, the rank and file blue-collar worker said, wait a minute, you've been shipping my jobs overseas for years.
Right. Yeah.
And we don't want it anymore.
Yeah.
And we listen to what Trump had to say. And the funny thing about Trump, and I've been thinking about it because I've looked at the people he's considering for various posts and others, and he reminded me of Andrew Carnegie, who was the founder of U.S. Steel, who became from nothing to one of the richest men in the world. And his philosophy was, I don't know everything, but I know people who do.
Yeah.
And he surrounded himself with people that knew everything that he needed to know. And I think we're having the same thing. I just heard that Larry Arnett, the president of Hillsdale College.
Oh, yeah?
The only university in the country that never takes a penny of government money. And the thing they're doing right now is teaching the Constitution. You can sign up on a website and watch it and understand it, and it's free. But Larry Arnett is being considered for Secretary of Education.
Wow.
So that's an example of the kind of people he's in. And he's brought Ted Cruz into the thing, was one of his biggest opponents. Yeah. And he's part of the consideration there.
Now, what are they considering him for?
Well, one of the things, there were some of the things, and one of the things will be the Supreme Court.
Oh, yeah. So boy, he would be terrific, wouldn't he?
And this is another critical part of this election, was that there were 2 and possibly 3 seats on the Supreme Court that will be up in this next election.
Unbelievable.
And so that if Hillary was making those appointments,
it'd be curtains.
It would be completely right.
Okay, it says, this is Gary Bauer's newsletter. He said there was a tidal wave of Heartland blue-collar families.
Right.
Can you,
Well, you're seeing, and economically look at that, for example, the income has not been going up, cost of living and inflation has been going up, so that whatever you were earning is buying a fraction of what it once did. Yeah. So the frustration was there, and it became very evident. And the bottom line was, anything's better than this. And we would go with Trump, and it was not so much Trump as a person; it was anti-Hillary. Yeah. And everything she stood for, and everything she was talking about. So it was not so much that I'm voting for Trump, but I'm voting against Hillary. Right. Right.
Well, this election return reminds me a little bit of Reagan, how he was able to recruit a lot of the union vote.
Exactly, because he was speaking their language. Yeah. And he understood it and completely. They're important. And what was important to them.
And they're the sort of the forgotten men and women of America, is these union people that have to pay huge amounts to their union, and yet they don't get much back from them.
But if you look at the electoral votes, everything on the East Coast, from Virginia to New England, all the way with the exception of Illinois, all that went Republican. And then the West Coast, California, Oregon, and Michigan, and Washington State, and Nevada went Democratic again. Yeah. And that's the ones like Boxler and others that have been, continuing that psychological battle. She's filed a bill
Boxer,
now that will eliminate the electoral college. Yeah. And the purpose of the electoral college was to give every state, big or small, a voice in the election. Yeah. And it's part of the Constitution. So just introducing a bill it's part of the Constitution, so it would have to go through several stages. Both the House and the Senate would have to vote 2/3 of its membership in order to pass the bill. And then it'd have to go to the states, and 2/3 of the states would have to ratify.
So they're not going to get that through.
And it'll never happen. So, but it's part of their propaganda and psychology.
Let's see. It says, perhaps the most damaging legacy of all is that under Obama, the Democrat Party has become a party of extremism. Pro-abortion extremism, environmental extremism, extreme attacks on the First and Second Amendment, and cultural extremism, putting men in the girls' bathrooms and showers and all of this.
But these are, again, issues that'll be at the state level, at General Assembly. And again, that's an important part that we have to communicate with these new members, particularly, and some of the old ones as well.
Okay. And Trump did much better than Mitt Romney did in
every category.
The Rust Belt states of Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, and Wisconsin. I talked with a union member a few days ago, and I said, "What happened?" And he says, "I'll tell you exactly what happened." He said, "The unions have been telling the union workers for a long time they're going to do this, they're going to do that, going to do this, going to do that." And he says they never delivered.
Right.
And so they said, "We're going to give somebody else a chance."
Well, this is another problem that we have in this country because they have been in power for so long that the leadership of the unions, the ones at the national headquarters sitting in Washington, and I met with them a long time ago, and took me up to the top floor, looked out the window, and said, "There's the White House." They are about a block across Jackson Square from the White House is the AFL-CIO's headquarters.
Wow.
And the quality of life that they lead, the memberships they have in the Congressional Country Club and all the rest of it, they have lost contact, just like the bureaucratic structure of Washington, with the rank and file members. All they want's their dues, and don't deliver anything for it.
Wow. That here again, that's sort of like the Reagan coalition, where he pulled together all of the religious right and I think there was a move among the conservative black people too, that they didn't jump in there and support Hillary like they had to if they wanted to win.
Their quality of life has not changed in the 8 years that it was supposed to be under this black president. And all of that, and they're beginning to understand that they've been on the Democratic plantation for years. And if you look at the history of the Democratic Party as it relates to civil rights, they were the founders of the Ku Klux Klan.
Oh, yes.
They were the founders of all of the other things that were anti-black, and all of that. And only recently they've changed because they needed the black vote. And they were able to, through their propaganda, to convince them otherwise.
There was a movie on, I think it was YouTube, that some lady kicked her, I think it was an 8-year-old son, out into the night at dark and, in the wintertime, because he supported Trump in a mock school election. Did you see that?
I've heard about it. So there's a lot of that kind of thing that people become so angry and hostile because I can't understand the psychology and behind it, and it would take a dozen psychiatrists to start explaining some of the things that have been going on.
It says Trump significantly outperformed Romney among union households. He did 14 points better than Romney among whites without a college degree, according to the New York Times. Trump, Democrat, turns out not to be a myth, but a meaningful constituency, and just cost Clinton the presidency.
Right. Well, there was a number of things, because I think this anger that the average citizen has been experiencing over the last several years and been building and building and building. And it's like that movie said, "I'm madder than hell and I'm not going to take it anymore." And that was basically what they brought him to the polls.
What movie was that?
I don't remember, but there was a classic scene where the guy...
I know. People have taken so much, and then they get, they're not going to take it anymore, especially if they got somebody who promises a better life for them.
And it's been that carrot and the stick. They always put the carrot out there and the stick, but you never make it to the carrot.
That's right. Here it says Trump also won 53% of white women.
Right.
And Hillary was supposed to get all the women vote.
Right.
And actually Trump got more. 70% of white, let's see, Trump won about 60% of white voters and nearly 70% of white voters who did not have a college degree.
Right.
You know, I get a tape every week of medical breakthroughs and things like that. And the last one I got, it said, apparently they're going to have physician assisted suicide in California.
Exactly. They passed a number of those in various states, the things that were on the ballot. And also in a number of states where they wanted to eliminate the death penalty and all that, the public voted no.
Really?
And they turned down a lot of those things. But
that's great.
The marijuana and all these other things that have been going on, and the other assisted
suicide,
suicide type things. But again, it was in those liberal states.
Oh, the ones that went for Hillary.
Yeah, basically that same old.
Well, this tape said that they were investigating the history of physician-assisted suicide in, I think it was Washington State.
Right.
And they said, this is surprising, but they said it was mostly the college-educated people that wanted to kill themselves.
Right. But this is a problem with our educational structure, starting in grade school and all the way through. It's been a propaganda process of socialism from beginning to end, and particularly, and even worse, at the higher levels of education. And you got to, if you want an education today, never let academics get in the way of your education.
Yeah. Wow. But that was something that, in other words, after they've been told, the world is an accident, that it just created itself with a big bang and all that, and there's no purpose to life, no meaning to life, and they get brainwashed into that, I can see how they would say, oh, well, I think I'll just...
Well, and the world's coming to an end because of climate change and all the other things.
Oh, yeah. So
that's another thing, these environmental things that have been propaganda. I've been a student of archaeology and geology almost all my life.
Really?
And I've studied past civilizations and its climate change that have taken place since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
And all of those things, and it's inevitable. Then there are certain things that have even as long as 1,000-year cycle, and some of the currents and other things that affect our weather.
Yeah.
It's very... unbelievable.
It comes and go. All these things come and go.
That American people are the ones that are causing the climate change.
Yeah.
And because it's very profitable to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Al Gore has turned into a multimillionaire using that propaganda.
Yeah.
And all of the other things. So it's almost like that old saying about follow the money.
Yeah.
Who profits?
Yeah.
And all of those things that have been going on with the environmental thing have nothing to do with climate change.
Yeah.
Mother Nature.
Yeah.
And you take the fact that the Vikings had establishments in Greenland, they raised sheep, they had trees planted and all those things, and that was in one of the cycles of the ice ages.
In Greenland?
In Greenland,
yeah.
That was the reason for the name.
Yeah, because it was green. Now, here's another thing that I was struck with. It says Trump won 8% of the black vote compared with 6% of the black vote earned by Romney in 2012.
And there were certain areas where it was more than that and others where they got complete control. All of those things were going on, but the Latino vote was not anywhere as large as they thought it would be for Hillary. Because they're good. Basically, most of them are good Christians.
Yeah. Now, here's another one that says, November 9th, when we woke up to the news that the nation had rejected the continuation of the anti-family, anti-faith policies of President Obama by electing Donald Trump in perhaps the most stunning political upset in the modern age. And again, it talks about the forgotten men and women, especially in the unions. And He did a good job. This is Tony Perkins and the Family Research Council, winning over 81% of the evangelical vote. We mentioned that. It says, if the media had questions about the influence of the religious right, they were answered early Wednesday morning by the greatest coalitions around a Republican nominee in 2 decades.
Right. And that was a very important thing because this backlash of all of these things that were going on and the frustration that people were feeling.
Yeah.
And they came out and voted in times where they never would before. The backlash of the immigration issue.
Yeah.
It was another important factor.
Yes.
You're seeing immigrants coming in from every place, and the quality of life of an immigrant far exceeds the average citizen. They're given free housing, free medical, free this, free that, and they living like a king. At the same time, the public watching that sees what's going on and gets very, very frustrated because you're taking my money, what little I've got left, to support these people. And
then some of them are even terrorists.
That she's bringing tens of thousands more in from the Middle East.
Yeah. Here it says Hillary spent about twice as much money on the election as Trump did. It was a miracle, I would say. And I think that's, of course, they don't know who exactly is going to be on the Trump cabinet, but I'm sure we'll find out soon.
He's surrounded himself with some really, really, really competent, capable, professional people that as soon as this thing's all settled, I think he'll have really good professional people who are non-politician, who are non-bureaucrats.
Don't know anything.
And they don't know anything.
Just do what's right.
Exactly.
Well,
so he's brought in a lot of people that were actually opposed to him early on in the nomination. They supported other candidates.
Yeah.
But because of his experience as a businessman and running a business and having to deal with people at every level, he knows what he needs to have to accomplish his goal.
Beautiful.
So that goes to the proper selection of people to run those various cabinets. And also, there's 4,000 jobs that are appointed by the president in the early stages.
Right,
so he's got all those to fill, but he needs people to help him fill those slots, too.
Well, I think we're about out of time again, Ed, but God bless you. Thank you for watching, and tune in again next week for the rest of the news.